Really excited about this session, well, all of them, of course. But pushing the limits is a hot topic, and how we do that. But before we start on the conversation, I thought maybe just 30 seconds each, just introducing yourselves and talking a little bit about what you're doing. So, Martin, why don't we start with you?
Sure, thank you. 30 seconds is a tough one. But so I'm Martin. Actually, recently, I have a title that caught up with my beard color. I'm now President Emeritus of Cohere and still on the board. So my focus is exclusively on our most important partners, customers, and clients like Evident, like RBC, of course. And of course, we know Drew very, very well from his previous role and his new role. So thrilled to be here. Cohere is all about secure AI for enterprise. So of these 6 companies in the world, I'll leave China out. Maybe Drew might talk a little bit about it in a second. But the 6 companies that make frontier AI tech from scratch, we are the only ones that are not controlled by U.S. big tech. And so that means we're fully independent, which has a lot of advantages, we believe, for enterprise. We deploy on any cloud. We get along very well with them, but 90%, 91 to be precise, of what we do is private deployment. So we ship our tech to your data. With RBC, that's fully on-prem. It's literally in their basement. For others, it might be on a sovereign cloud. You know, we work with Fujitsu in Japan, or LG in Korea, or Bell recently announced in Canada, or deploying on Core 42 in UAE, wherever it is, because we believe for critical infrastructure, like banks, like insurance companies, our customers and our partners need to decide where their AI tech is deployed. And I think I might talk a little bit about it later. Also, not just have generic AI tech, but have something that gives them alpha, that enables them to do things that their competitors can't. And I think Bobby will talk a little bit about how RBC sees that as a strategic advantage, not just me too.
Definitely. We'll get into that proprietary AI build in a minute. But Bobby, over to you.
Thanks, Alexandra. Bobby Grubert, thrilled to be here. Privileged to be at RBC for 3 decades. Now lead our AI and digital innovation across capital markets, and that's developing AI strategies front to back for all businesses.
And you're running a marathon.
I'm cheering this year.
Drew, over to you.
Yeah, hi, everyone. So I spent 30 years in the Marines, and my number one goal was to stop fighting wars on PowerPoint. And my mantra was, data goes to die in every Microsoft product you make. The tombstone of all things. And then after I retired, I had a chance to help out with the AI program at JP Morgan, which was just a stunning place to work and be part of. And then I've since moved on. I'm now living in California, and we have a large effort with TWG, the Walter Group. So think of the Dodgers, the Lakers. Think of an investment bank, all the Guggenheim properties, and then a ton of other businesses to include Western lifestyle. We're hoping to redesign how you go to a rodeo. How many have been to a rodeo recently? So we're going to reinvent rodeo with AI all over the place. So that's the stuff we're doing, and it's amazing and exciting, and I look forward to the discussion today.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to start with you, Martin, just to go back to your the point about proprietary AI build in the banks, and what options do banks have, and maybe you could sort of tell us a bit more about the importance of and why you build the way that you do, and what the advantages are for banks.
Yeah, I see the AI world a bit simplistically as a bit like a hierarchy of needs, and the sort of foundational layer are the mass market features that billions of us will use dozens of times an hour. And these are going to be incredibly well served by Google and Microsoft. They'll just be built into your 365, built into your workspace. I'm assuming none of the bankers here have invested in a spell check startup lately, or autocomplete. No, because it's just built into Word and Excel. And a lot of these capabilities are already being built into those. So there's no need to replicate that. And a lot of the companies that have grown up and still surprisingly getting lots of funding as thin wrappers around other people's tech, I think are going to be challenged, because a lot of this stuff is just going to be built into the things we use every day. The next layer up, though, there are enterprise SaaS companies that are built into every workflow in the world, and I don't think they're going to go anywhere. Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, Experian, Bloomberg, et cetera. Again, they're building this tech into their products. Many are powered by Cohere and others. But the interesting one to get to your question is the top of that, and those are the things that are specific to a company. So RBC, I'm assuming, doesn't use some third-party website to do loan pricing or to provide portfolio advice to high net worth individuals. They have that as proprietary capabilities, and that will continue going forward. And that's where we believe that companies, banks, insurance, others need proprietary capabilities that give them alpha, that give them a strategic advantage over their customers. And so generic AI is great. You have a chat bot that 800 million people use, wonderful, but it's by definition generic. I used to be at Google search. It's amazing. 3.3 billion of us use it every day. It's generic. By definition, it has to be. 3.3 billion people use it every day. We think we do the opposite, which is make things that are specific and work with our partners closely, like RBC, to customize and configure already world-class tech. It's not like we're starting from scratch. You start the marathon on mile 25 and then run that last mile together to make something that is providing, for example, RBC with something that differentiates for capital markets, for wealth management, from what their competitors are doing now. And those can coexist. Like in many cases, I don't think we compete with the consumer chatbot companies. People will use Google search, but they're also going to have proprietary systems. They might use a consumer chatbot to figure out how to mix cocktails or whatever, but deployed in their environment with access to their incredibly sensitive data, and able to do multi-step reasoning and make their people more productive, more effective, and maybe win a deal or do better work than their competitors. That's where we focus.
Mm-hmm. And to you, Bobby, you do this day and night, the execution and deployment that we're all talking about on the capital market side and beyond. Could you respond to Martin and sort of what he's building, but also maybe take us into your world for a second and talk about sort of where you are? You've got Aiden North, sort of, give us a sense of what you're working on.
If we think about kind of AI culture is really important. Mm-hmm. We take a step back, we've benefited from our CEO Dave's leadership, and if we step through kind of how we got to where we got to and executing at pace with Martin and Cohere, Dave had the vision to create RBC Borealis a decade ago. Mm-hmm. Hired Fotini, she's added 100 of the top machine learning experts, scientists, researchers. So think about Borealis as a science and research lab, think about AI and digital as the commercial arm. 10 years of history and trust, building platforms together. We actually invented a platform together. That's important because we forged an AI culture, AI mindset with client and commercial results. Aiden was our patented reinforcement learning platform. As you fast forward and having the vision to work with Cohere and the team, that was in quick assimilation into the RBC culture of how we work, how we innovate, how we execute at pace. If we think about then how we've developed Aiden North in capital markets, we call it Aiden North. It's a step change in how we work. It's a cutting-edge proprietary AI capability that's executed and rolled out to capital markets with an agent creation capability, which has been the game changer for us in terms of empowering our people to really deliver for clients and drive commercial outcomes. And I know we'll get into more specifics of how we work, but that's been really important to us.
Yeah, and we get into more specifics on the outcomes and so where you are on that. But I wanted to bring you in, Drew, because I mean your perspective is so valuable because having dealt with that from JP Morgan, looking at building proprietary in-house, but also working with partners on how to do that. And I know we'll get there, but there is one question that sort of sits at the foundation of everything that is done, right? It's all about becoming integration ready and what that takes. What do you need to do in order to have the rails that this can run on? There's a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then also, in that context, talk to us about the competitiveness aspect.
Yeah, look, I know we're not all shot callers in this room. Our CEOs are in their busy place right now. But there is a call here for for the West, frankly. And the concern is that in China, in the PRC, in the East, they are advancing AI capabilities very quickly. And it might be the unfortunate case that if a CEO of a bank wanted to go see what the future looks like, I can't think of a Western city that you would land in and see the model. You would go to a city in China. And so this is, we saw the administration put the roadmap out. And if you read the roadmap, it's not long. Throw it in your summarizer. And, the words are adoption, get moving. And so the question is, if this new transformation that's happening in AI is this revolutionary, and I think all of us in this room accept that, and it's civilizational. This is a matter of, competitiveness. This is a matter of, like, the new inventions that we're going to see, and many of us can touch those outlines. Just in the last month, we've got all the major AI providers going B2B, right? They're changing their model from B to C. They're coming for us, right? We're going to execute commerce through a dialog box. And we're going to do payments through dialog boxes. And they're going to disintermediate many of us in this room if we're not careful. And so that's what we're doing here in the West. But I want to offer that what's happening in China is something far different, where we're talking about literally full societal change. And the administration knows this, which is why the roadmap came out. And it's a call to get moving. And frankly, the sort of anemic pace that we see in a lot of institutions, and this is really a call out to the Evident team. And we've been talking about this, Alexandra, for a while. This is a report card. This isn't just some silly document. We should be looking at this and asking ourselves, where should we be on this index? And notwithstanding the data collection issues, because you're looking at it as an intelligence firm from the outside in, but fundamentally, if you accept that premise that what this wave and what's coming is going to be that transformational, and we understand that we're, in many cases, still just opening the door on this and not moving quite like we should, even with an administration that is pushing us, go, move. The investments are still not there. So this idea of integration ready. So what does it take to be ready for when the door suddenly opens up and all these new products are released we haven't even thought of because we're still fumbling around in the back office trying to figure out how many use cases we're doing or whatever. Fundamentally, what will happen here is if you don't have your culture set, if you don't have your compliance team there, if you don't have the CEOs and the business leaders there, and you just suddenly want to turn this on because all of a sudden a superintelligence lands, level 5 AGI or whatever, and you are not prepared for this, you're gonna have to suffer, what's coming, which is essentially, you're gonna relook at your whole institution. And so this is what drove us in the military. I ran Project Maven for defense, and we were just watching these things move, and we knew we had to go fast, and we did. And the first place was let's stop fighting wars on PowerPoint. For business, let's stop executing the main things we do in business on Excel. We need a data platform. Mm-hmm. We need AI throughout the organization. And we're going to execute our business more and more in very different ways. And unless we get moving and start adopting and we're integration ready, our CEOs are going to preside over the first workforce that's going to consist of agents and people. And right now it'll be a 90-10 or a 95-5, but eventually, probably within the next 3 to 5 years, it'll be 60-40. Mm-hmm. 60 human, 40% agents. And what's that like? And are we going fast enough to understand that? So I think the challenge is move, adopt. Now, I'm talking to this room. We're all people who are practicing. This is the wrong audience, but there is a call here to get moving before we're surprised.
Thank you, Drew. I wonder if you wanted to comment on that, because I think, as we spoke about in our intro, this whole question about moving faster, right? And so, we also saw this gap between the leading and the lagging banks growing faster, right? And so what is the point in time where the window to, as I mentioned the other day, we've got the phrase too big to fail is a point in time where you're too late to compete. And I think that's really on a lot of banks' minds, right? And so how do you accelerate that? Because it's few banks that are, in moving as fast as the banks in the top of this index. And many are trying to work out, how do we leapfrog? How do we move faster and get all of the data, all of the compliance, and also the change management and remove the resistance for people who's like, this function is just A-okay, let's leave it where it is. And so I know there are many dials, but what do you focus on first? And maybe I'll just go to you, Martin, and maybe back to you, and then to you, Bobby.
It's a good question. I couldn't agree more with Drew. I'm not a geopolitical expert, but I think the point about adoption is key. And to your question, Alexandra, I think what's common with both Drew and Bobby is that they have collectively, I think, sort of a direct line to the CEO. Like, this is not an AI group playing around with things. This is like the CEO saying, we will change this organization and build it around AI. And that's essential. I don't think I've seen a single deep partnership we have that's really transformative that doesn't have the CEO and the CTO, CISO, GC, all those people, and the AI team. It's got to be all three of those personas, if you will. And a good example with RBC, with Fotani, who's fantastic, her team's fantastic. They didn't need, I'm a reform consultant, they didn't need to hire more consultants to say, let's think of some use cases and do some more PowerPoint. She had 192 things they wanted to build. The problem is there are 14 risk departments at RBC. I think that's literally the case, 14 risk departments and a federal regulator. The issue was, how do we make sure that all these risk departments will be okay with what we're doing? So some of the things like private deployment was sort of a must-have, but a bunch of other things as well. And then the other thing that, using a little analogy, when I was a kid, my dad and I would go to Radio Shack, I'm dating myself, buy some transistors, a circuit board, a soldering iron, and we'd make a radio, and it was super fun. But my dad didn't use that to play music for his guests at dinner that evening. But that's kind of what a lot of companies are doing with AI. They have a bunch of people who say, I'll take a bit of LangChain, a bit of open source, a bit of this, bit of that, and hey, look what I built. That's not enterprise grade. We talk about the 90% of the iceberg underwater, which is all the really yucky stuff that no one writes articles about. And that's why we developed our North Agentic AI platform workspace, which we then customize and configure with RBC and others. But getting rid of all the stuff, the yucky stuff, that a bank doesn't want to have to recreate that from scratch. It makes no sense. They want to figure out how to take this, customize it, configure it to and focus on the outcomes, focus on the applications, and so on. That's powered by our Command A series of models, but we can swap in other models if people say they want to use, Gemini or Anthropic for certain things, no problem. If they want to deploy that multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, no problem. It's got the best search and retrieval capabilities. You can create agents. It's an agent creation workspace. And so really the focus there was like, how do we take this and accelerate time to value to then think about how we're going to deploy it? And maybe a little bit, building on what Drew was saying, like, stop doing more studies of prioritizing use cases. Just do one, then a second, then a third. And I think the why we developed North as this platform is because it has an agentic building capability, which means the end users, and I asked Bobby before, like, do you let your end users create agents? Like, yeah, we have hundreds of them now. So the next 5, 10, 100, 500,000 agents can be done almost like this because the hard work was done up front to create this capability in the environment and then focus on the business outcomes. But if it's not the CEO saying everything we do is going to be about this and every one of the organizations coming together, it's going to be a science project.
Bobby, can you comment on that? And also just take us through, part of Drew, your point about, all of these things that you need, and you need to move at pace. When you're looking at what you're doing on the capital market side and all of that you're building there and beyond, what did you drew on Fotani. You also had other aspects that you were focusing on that has led to the pickup in pace and partnerships and so on. Just talk us through, what led to this acceleration for you, and then take us through, where is it now?
Yeah. The harder part that Martin refers to would say two critical things we did. One is the Office of AI, and two is the AI Champions. So being informed by our experiences in reinforcement learning, safety, moving with speed and control, go fast, fast, fast. We're never going fast enough. But we created an Office of AI 2.5 years ago. That's one front door for all things AI and capital markets. You want to do anything in AI, you come through the front door, you come through the Office of AI. We subsumed the governance, AI governance of Royal Bank of Canada across the Office of AI. So the governance piece, AI and digital governance, is mission critical for us and non-negotiable. Then we have a product advisory board aligned to the Office of AI that actually funds AI initiatives. AI initiatives, and kind of how we think about that is, you solving a client problem, can you drive commerciality at scale? Can you ultimately drive results at scale? So you have the Office of AI, and we're able to inventory all AI activities, ML, RL, and then getting ready for the next layer. We have Andre Mani, our lead AI engineer. We have our own AI engineers. We have our own team, closest to the client, closest to execution, execute at pace. So that was number one. Two, we stood up our AI champion community nominated by the CMOC, Capital Markets Operating Committee, 5 months ago. 100 people, three things: drive AI education, RBC Borealis. We have the privilege of having people that actually teach AI at universities, teaching our people. So you have to teach our people the AI, and then every other week, the next week you evidence a use case or you evidence an agent. So you're creating this mindset of unlocking your imagination and capabilities of the people closest to the client, and we're obsessed with developing a vision for the workflow. So we lock in with Martin and his team every week, and we met with your colleagues on Friday, kind of what do we need right away, and then how do we accelerate execution within that framework. The agent creation, and then where we are now, if you think about democratizing that ability, and again, speed and control and the right continuous surveillance and observations around that, an example. So equity research sales, you have someone that creates an agent on their own through Aiden North, and it's a research content summarization agent, a basic agent, but that's a high throughput content every morning that take you maybe 40, 45 minutes that you can get down to 3 minutes. That allows you to be on the phone with clients, and as our top clients tell us, what do they want? They want original content. We used to call it differentiated insights, faster insights to clients. It's always about speed to the client, but original insights. So someone in Canada creates this agent through Aiden North. Someone in New York creates that agent. We go to the head of global market sales and we say, Sean, you have an opportunity to actually industrialize an agent. Step change overnight of industrializing an agent as a base case. You just change a complete workflow overnight. And then you added back 40 minutes to the masses to lock in on clients and talk about how you're going to support the clients in execution of their strategy. And there's many, many, many examples of that going on now. Yeah.
Interesting. And Drew, I was wondering if maybe just one quick question back to you, Bobby, on where you are on. I want to get to the ROI question. I know everyone talks about it, and there's this in this room, I know people will disagree on the measuring that on a quarterly or yearly basis, and we need to think about it really long term, because otherwise we're just counting and using. But do you have you have an evolved framework to monitor the progress going on, and is that, what is your view on this sort of measurement of the short term, the progress here and now, versus how do you align that with thinking about what you're doing and what that might look like 3 to 4 years away?
When we think about ROI framework, and Drew kind of mentioned, a singular metric right now would be adoption as a basic measurable of how people are adopting the AI capabilities. We measure everything. We measure it by every cohort, by every business. If you think about business-led use cases, and it has to be a business-led use case, then you can actually embed the business KPIs into your measurables. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if real numbers, if we want to go from 200 basis points in the investment bank to 275 basis points, we want to drive a specified amount of revenue, then you look at the component pieces by sector, and where you're augmenting your people capabilities with AI, are you accelerating the execution of driving that P&L, the productivity part of it? So we have ROI frameworks for each business, for the cohorts, but then there's also kind of a real focus on just the time to value We quantify every hour saved. We have 11 categories. I won't go into all that right now, but it's very methodical of how we think about that. And then again, with Aiden North, that helps us accelerate on that strategy and accelerate those frameworks. And then we capture those 11 categories, the usage, the questions, the time saved. How do you evidence the time saved layer of summarization, content generation, new insights, new data? How do you evidence? That's basic that's adding a massive amount of time back. How do you evidence that you're reapplying that to client focus, client outcomes, strategic decision making? And then we do it by associate, VP, D, MD. So we have that, and then you play it back to your business owners and business leaders to show, and hand over heart, like for our people, we're augmenting our people with AI capabilities to compete at the highest levels and deliver for clients. And you have to play back those metrics. And then lastly, in Aiden North, we're building the Aiden usage agent, which will give you every measurement and then drive your KPIs. Yeah.
So if I can just go to Drew first, because I wanted to get into this question about, that's really detailed monitoring, right? And as you know, we've got our private benchmark where we get this data from banks, and there's so many different types of ways that banks are measuring their ROI, and some are really detailed and some are less so. But Drew, what would you advise someone in our index that are maybe beginning to think about this, or sort of very early stages? Because I very much agree with your vision of, this is coming, it's going to be transformative. The competition from outside of the US is going to be big, and so on, so we better be ready. And so what would you advise the banks that are just starting to do? And also just maybe if you could touch on this short-term detailed ROI measurement versus long-term, or would you say just spend more and do more and do it quickly?
Yeah, I mean, look, how do you compete with a country that is giving AI away for free?
Right.
Okay. And where they're intentionally saying, it's a state-owned enterprise, basically. These are entirely funded by the government. And they know that this is a competition that's existential. And then you come to the United States in the West, and you have to pay for this. And so when did AI people have the minds of accountants? This is a dangerous place. Like, we need to build, right? And we need to be assigned projects, but there is no globally accepted accounting principles for booking benefit from AI. These are our inventions to have to humbly go before leadership and say, see what we're doing? It matters. Gosh, guys, how did we get here? And use cases are a unit of measurement, let's be frank, for regulators. Because they want to come in and they want to see what are you doing, and you better be able to print that thing out and walk through every use case in detail. We are evolving out of this. We still have to do that accounting. Yes, we'll have a whole 100 people that are going to book everything, and we got to go humbly to the CFO and record it. Yes, I got it. But how do we compete with what's coming where everything is essentially free? It's hands-off regulator, and they're literally blowing past use cases, and it's about total business transformation. Frankly, I think a lot of leadership are getting tired of the use case discussion.
Yeah.
They're probably growing tired of us just recording, and they're like, dude, just change my business.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's go. And look, I know it's hard to get there because you have to start with use cases, and you got to show. But honestly, it is more than use cases. And I think our next index will probably start to indicate that it's all about, what are your campaigns to literally change this entire field?
We're on it.
Yeah.
We're going to do that next index, among the many others. I'm being told that time is up. We could continue forever. But thank you so much. A round of applause for our great speakers.